There are moments in life where the path shifts beneath our feet, where curiosity calls us further along the journey, where magic begins to feel a little less distant and a little more woven into everyday life. Hello, welcome, merry meet. I'm Med, and welcome to Which Path Next. This podcast is a space for exploring spirituality, everyday magic, and the winding paths we find ourselves walking through in life. Together, we'll explore folklore, ritual, intuition, seasonal magic, and the quiet ways spirituality can weave itself into everyday life. Whether you're here for witchcraft, reflection, connection, or simply a quiet moment to yourself, whether you're taking your first steps along the path, finding your way back to it, or continuing further along your journey, I'm so glad you're here. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's walk the path together. In today's episode, we're exploring Crossroads magic, folklore, and the symbolism of standing between paths. We'll be talking about the folklore behind Crossroads and witchcraft, the spirits and the stories connected to these liminal spaces, and why crossroads have been associated with transformation, choice, and new beginnings. We'll also be exploring some practical crossroads-inspired rituals and prosperity workings connected to opening roads, welcoming opportunity, and stepping into new paths. But before we dive into all of that, I thought I'd share a bit about where I am on my own path at the moment. The truth is, crossroads have been on my mind a lot lately, not just in folklore and witchcraft, but in life generally. Sometimes there are moments when something shifts internally, and you realise you can't keep walking exactly the same path you've been walking. So that's been a theme for me recently. I recently had a bit of a health scare. Luckily, I'm absolutely fine, but I did have 2 bronchospasms. Now, sorry, I'm laughing at the name of them, but they sound funny, but they're not. They're basically like asthma attacks, except they're not caused by asthma. So I don't have asthma, but I did have 2 episodes where I basically couldn't breathe. So the first one was in the evening, and I felt like I was having a bit of an allergic reaction. Like my skin was tingly, my throat wasn't too good. I took some antihistamines and thought it was settling, and then I went up to bed because it was quite late already. And then as I was laying there, I suddenly started having what felt like an asthma attack. I know a lot about asthma attacks because my son has chronic severe asthma, but I've never had asthma myself. So yeah, that was quite scary. I used my son's inhaler. Not sure if it worked or not, to be honest. I just kind of rid it out. I mean, really, I should have gone to hospital, but I never really do when it's for myself. I try to ride things out as best I can and treat things with my own remedies. It's settled, but I was kind of wheezy still. I managed to get some sleep. And then the next morning, I felt better, but I was still somewhat wheezy and felt like my throat was, well, I didn't know if my throat was sore and that was causing it, or if it was from all the coughing where I had the bronchospasm the night before. And then it felt like someone was just kind of sitting on my chest, like squeezing my chest. So that was just kind of there for the morning. And then I tried to go out shopping with my husband. And as I walked across Tesco's car park, I started having another bronchospasm. Now, this one was very different to the one the night before. And apologies, if you've listened to me before, you know I have a dark sense of humour. So I do laugh about this in hindsight. But it was, it just came out of nowhere. First of all, it felt like a tickling in my throat. And then it suddenly became this horrendous noise that was just kept coming out of me. I can't even describe or begin to reenact the noise that I was making. But it was loud and it was long and it was non-stop. I couldn't do it again if I tried, and I hope I never hear that noise come out of me again. It was so embarrassing. The car park was quite busy and full, and I couldn't control it, and I couldn't catch my breath, and then I started uncontrollably coughing, which then led to me dry heaving, which was another horrendous noise, and it went on for about 10 minutes, and it was so embarrassing, and then as it calmed down, managed to get myself back into the car. My husband went into Tesco's to get me some tissues and some more antihistamines to see if it would help and stuff. So I contacted my GP about it, and I was like, "I really don't want to go into hospital. I just want to know if I'm getting a chest infection or something, like what is causing this, because I don't want it to happen again and then me to actually stop breathing, because that wouldn't be fun." But, while I was trying to talk to him on the phone, he could tell that I was still breathless trying to talk. So he was like, "No, I can't even talk to you. You have to go to hospital, go to A&E right now. You should have gone already." And so, cut a long story short, I'm absolutely fine. They thought I may have a blood clot, but I didn't, thankfully. They said my infection marker was high, so they gave me a round of antibiotics, and now I seem fine. So, yeah, it wasn't fun, but I'm over it. But when your health is really bad, and I have chronic health issues anyway, I suffer with, well, they've just changed the name to something else, but it was polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's now PMOS, and I cannot, for the life of me, remember what that stands for, even though I've studied it loads and shared it on my Facebook and stuff. ADHD. So, yeah, I suffer with that. So, my monthly cycle really affects my day to day life. 2 weeks of the month, I'm absolutely fine. I'm functional. I'm able to do stuff. And then another 2 weeks of the month, I'm a completely different person who can't move off the sofa and can't get anything done, which is loads of fun. So, yeah, the timing of this bronchochasm and everything kind of all came together at the same time. And I was floored for about 2 weeks. But thankfully, I'm back to normal now, as normal as I'm going to get anyway. So, yeah, I think when you go through things like that, and also I've gone through other personal things in the past month that have really stood out to me as a crossroads, it just kind of makes you reflect on where you're at, where you've come from, where you were going, where you want to go now. And yeah, it's been an eye opening month for me. Over the past few months, I've been really evolving in terms of boundaries. If you've followed my path before now, you've probably heard me mention that. And for me, boundaries have always been a difficult thing to uphold. They're getting easier as time goes on, but I was brought up in not the best circumstances, in a world where I wasn't allowed to have any boundaries. So over time, I've always been somebody who gives, gives, gives. And I like that about myself. I don't want to lose that completely. But there does have to be that element of give and take. And sometimes when you are unable to keep giving without getting anything back, that ends up changing the world around you. So recently, I found myself reconnecting with spirituality in a quieter and more reflective way. I feel like the past few months have been a bit of an awakening for me. And now I'm excited to walk the path before me, even though it's not the one I thought I would be on, and embrace it. And that is what makes Crossroads such fascinating places, both in folklore and in life. So, what actually are crossroads? At their simplest, crossroads are exactly what they sound like: a place where roads meet, a place where one path becomes several, a place where you have to choose which direction to go next. But throughout history, crossroads became much more than just physical roads. Across different cultures and traditions, they were often seen as liminal spaces, places that existed between worlds, neither fully one place nor another, a threshold between the known and the unknown. And I think we have always been drawn to these kind of spaces: forest edges, shorelines, dusk, doorways, bridges, places where things feel uncertain or shifting somehow. Crossroads belong to that same family of spaces. They became associated with spirits, transformation, magic, and change. Some people believed crossroads were spaces where the veil between worlds felt thinner. Offerings were left there, rituals were performed there, stories and warnings grew around them. And what's really interesting is that crossroads show up across many different traditions and cultures throughout history. The symbolism keeps repeating itself. The idea that when paths meet, something powerful can happen there. And I think that still resonates with people now, even outside of folklore and witchcraft, because most of us know what it feels like to stand at a crossroad in life. That feeling of standing between an old version of yourself and a new one, between certainty and uncertainty, between staying where you are and stepping into the unfamiliar. Sometimes crossroads aren't physical places at all. Sometimes they're seasons of life. We've already touched a little on the idea of crossroads being liminal spaces, but I think it's worth spending a moment on what that actually means. Liminal spaces are places, moments, or states that exist between one thing and another. Dusk and dawn, doorways, shorelines, the moment before a journey begins or after one ends. Crossroads fit naturally into that idea. They're not simply a place where roads meet, they're a place of transition, a point where one direction becomes many. And perhaps that's why they've become such a powerful symbol throughout history. Not because of the roads themselves, but because of what they represent. Standing at a crossroads means change is possible. It means a choice is waiting to be made. When talking about crossroads in folklore and witchcraft, it's impossible not to mention Hecate. Hecate is one of the figures most strongly associated with crossroads, thresholds, and liminal spaces. In ancient Greece, she was often seen as a guardian of the places that existed between worlds, doorways, gateways, boundaries, and of course, crossroads. Over time, she became associated with magic, spirits, protection, the night, and the mysteries that exist beyond the edge of ordinary understanding. You will often see Hecate depicted carrying torches, and I think that's one of the reasons so many people continue to connect with her today. Because torches don't remove the darkness, they simply help you find your way through it. And when you think about it, that's exactly what crossroads are about. Not having all the answers, not knowing exactly where a path will lead, but choosing to take a step forward anyway. In some traditions, offerings were left at crossroads in honour of Hecate. Ancient sources describe food offerings being placed at crossroads, particularly during the dark moon, as a way of seeking her blessing, protection, or guidance. Crossroads themselves became places where her presence was believed to be especially strong, particularly freeway crossroads, which became closely linked with her symbolism. You may have also seen images of Hecate shown in triple form, 3 faces looking in different directions, 3 bodies standing back to back. These are different interpretations of this imagery. But one that has also resonated with me is the idea of seeing in multiple directions at once: the path you've walked, the path you're standing on, the path that lies ahead. And perhaps that's why Hecate continues to appear whenever people talk about crossroads. Because crossroads aren't really about choosing between a right or wrong path. They're about standing in a moment of possibility, a moment where several futures exist at once, and finding the courage to keep moving forward. Whether or not you work with Hecate personally, I think the symbolism remains powerful. The torch, the key, the crossroads. The reminder that even when we can't see the whole journey ahead, we can still take the next step. So, whether or not we work with Hecate, leave offerings at crossroads, or follow any particular spiritual tradition, I think there's a reason crossroads continue to resonate with people today. Most of us know what it feels like to stand at a crossroads in our own lives. Sometimes it's obvious: a new job, a relationship ending or beginning, moving house, starting a family, beginning a spiritual journey, and sometimes it's much quieter than that. Sometimes a crossroads is simply a moment you realise you've outgrown something, a belief, a habit, a version of yourself. Sometimes nothing around you has changed yet, but internally, you know you're standing at the edge of something new. I think that's why crossroads symbolism has survived for so long, because it really isn't about roads. It's about choice. It's about transformation. It's about those moments when we find ourselves standing between what was and what could be. And the truth is, those moments can be uncomfortable. We want certainty. We want guarantees. We want to know that if we choose a particular path, everything will work out exactly as we'd hoped. But life rarely works like that. Most of the time, we don't get to see the entire road ahead. We only get to see the next few steps. And maybe that's where the symbolism of the crossroads becomes so powerful. Not because it promises us answers, but because it reminds us that uncertainty isn't something to fear. It's often the beginning of something new. Sometimes the most magical thing we can do is trust ourselves enough to take the next step. I'm feeling very Frozen vibes right now. I cannot talk about taking the next step without getting that song, which I actually cannot remember the tune to right now. Luckily for you, because you don't have to listen to it. But I love that song. That is it Anna that sings it about taking the next step in Frozen 2, I believe. Anyway, sorry, I digress. Even when you know exactly where the path will lead. Of course, crossroads aren't only symbolic. Many modern practitioners still incorporate crossroad themes into their spiritual practice. Some people use crossroads energy when seeking guidance. Some use it when navigating major life transitions, and others use it as a way of inviting new opportunities and possibilities into their lives. So I thought I'd share a few simple crossroad-inspired practices that you can adapt to your own path. One simple way of working with crossroads energy is through reflection and journaling. This is a practice I think works particularly well if you're facing a decision, navigating a period of change, or simply feeling uncertain about what comes next. Begin by finding a quiet space where you won't be disturbed. If your house is anything like mine, that's the hardest part of the ritual. You might like to light a candle, make a cup of tea, or create a calm atmosphere in whatever way feels right to you. Coming back to the being disturbed thing, because like I said, you can guarantee I will be disturbed. You have no idea how many times I have to stop and pause while recording this podcast, for instance, or repeat myself because my child was making loads of noise in the background, even though I've told them I'm recording a million times. And when doing rituals and doing my own spiritual practices, it's the same. So I've learnt to... Ironically, my husband is now calling my phone from downstairs while I'm trying to record this bit. That's hilarious. Hello?
You never said what herbal tea.
Oh, turmeric, please.
Okay.
Thanks. Oh, that's so funny. Synchronicity. Anyway. Oh, crack it up. Right. Where was I? He is making me a cup of tea, so I can't really complain. Where was I up to? I was reading about making a cup of tea. Synchronicity again. So I was saying... Ironically, I got interrupted while saying that part. What I was going to say was, you can guarantee I will be interrupted while doing my rituals. And I used to feel like, oh, I need complete isolation, otherwise it will take my concentration away from it and my energy won't be in it because somebody's taking my energy away from what I'm focusing on. But I've learnt to just kind of breathe through it, give them the moment that they need, and then return my energy and ground myself back into what I was doing. Otherwise, I'll just never find a time that I can do my rituals and spell work. So yeah, nothing needs to be perfect. If you've got a busy, hectic life, you've got a family, they don't understand that you want to just focus that time and energy onto your rituals. Obviously, there are boundaries. You have to put them in place and tell them you're busy, but sometimes they do genuinely need you for something. It's fine. Just take a few breaths afterwards, continue with what you were doing, which is what we'll do now. So that leads us perfectly on to, after you've created that atmosphere in the way that feels right for you, take a few slow breaths and imagine yourself standing at a crossroads. Ahead of you are two different paths. You don't need to know exactly where they lead. Simply allow yourself to notice them. Then take out a journal and spend some time reflecting. What path am I currently walking? What feels aligned in my life right now? What feels outgrown? What am I being invited to step towards? What am I afraid of leaving behind? Don't worry about finding perfect answers. The purpose isn't to force a decision. It's simply to create a space to listen to yourself. When you're finished, you might like to write down one small step you can take towards the path that feels most aligned. Not the entire journey, just the next step. Because sometimes that's all we really need to see. Another practice you can try is a simple road opening ritual. This is useful if you feel blocked, stuck, or like you're ready for new opportunities but something isn't quite moving yet. For this, you'll need a candle, a piece of paper, and a pen. You might also like to use a key, a coin, or something that symbolises opportunity to you. Start by writing down what feels blocked. It could be one word, a sentence, or a few lines. Something like, I feel stuck in, or the obstacle I'm ready to move through is. Then take a moment to really acknowledge it. Not judge it, not push it away, just name it. Once you've done that, turn the paper over and write what you're inviting in instead. This might be clarity, confidence, prosperity, the right opportunity, a new beginning, movement, support, whatever feels true to you. Then light your candle and place the paper beside it. If you're using a key or coin, place that on top of the paper as a symbol of doors opening and paths becoming clearer. You might like to say, may the right roads open before me, may obstacles begin to shift, may I recognise the opportunities meant for me, and may I have the courage to take the next step. Sit with the candle for a few moments and imagine the path ahead gently opening. Not dramatically, not all at once, just enough for you to see the next step. When you're finished, keep the paper somewhere safe for a few days, or place it near your front door as a reminder that you're inviting movement and opportunity into your life. And remember, road opening magic isn't just about waiting for something to happen. It's also about the practical steps we take afterwards. The email sent, the application filled in, the conversation had, the boundary kept, the opportunity noticed. Sometimes the spell opens the door, but we still have to walk through it. So yeah, that's something really important at the end there is magic is not this instant thing that fixes all and does the work for you. It's a tool that you use to change the energy around you, to let the universe know that you're ready to walk towards the thing that you want. But you do have to put in the hard work. The universe knows if you really want something or not. And if you're not putting in the work to get the thing, then you clearly don't really want it. So it's important to know you have to do all the practical things. For instance, you couldn't do a spell to win the lottery, but not actually buy a lottery ticket. You still have to do that thing. Not that I'm saying there is a spell to win the lottery. Otherwise, I would have done it by now. If you have done the spell to win the lottery and it's worked, please let me know and share it with me. So one final quick and practical practice you can do relating to Crossroads is a Crossroads walk. Now, me and my friend did this kind of by accident in the woods recently. And we went to some beautiful bluebell woods by a local reservoir. And we both happened to be talking to each other about crossroads we'd come to in our life. And it became a thing where we were kind of there were so many crossroads in this woods, and we got a bit lost, kind of accidentally on purpose. And every crossroads we went to, we kind of made a real, like, big thing about it and was like, "Which one do we choose now?" And described the each one, like, "That one's more sunlit, that one's a bit darker, that one's more off route, that one's the natural place to go." And we made a decision based on that. And at the same times, we were talking about decisions in our lives, and it felt really kind of symbolic of what we were talking about, and like we were literally going through the motions physically at the same time as talking about it. It also happens to be the same day that I've known this friend for a while, and she came out to me as being a witch as well and said that she realized we were drawn together for a reason and that we're on the same path, ironically. So, a lot of symbolism there, lots of paths, lots of crossroads. And, yeah, so this is something you can do. So the idea is you go for a walk. When you come to a fork in the path, a crossroads, a doorway, a bridge, or a threshold, pause. Reflect on where you are in life. Set an intention. Choose your direction consciously. And that's it. That's the whole thing. And you'll be surprised what just going for, especially if it's in a beautiful place like a Big Bell Woods, but it doesn't need to be that. Just going for that walk, breathing through it, physically walking through your decisions will make the world of difference to you in terms of clarity and choosing your direction and knowing what path to choose. Okay, now it's time for a fun little segment called Bewitching Choices. This is the part of the podcast where I step into a strange magical scenario and try to decide which choice I'd make. Some of them are thoughtful, some are chaotic, and some are probably terrible ideas waiting to happen. I'd love for you to play along too. So while you're listening, think about what you would choose, whether you agree with my answer, and whether you think I've made an absolutely awful decision. And if you have any of your own bewitching choices, strange questions, or witchy scenarios you'd like me to explore in future episodes, you can always message me or comment on the podcast. I'd genuinely love to hear them. So let's see what today's bewitching choices has in store. I asked the universe, and by the universe, I mean ChatGPT, and this is what it gave me. You're wandering through an old woodland path at dusk when you come across a tiny hidden apothecary you've never seen before. Inside, an elderly witch tells you she can give you one potion completely free. But you can only choose one, and you can never return. Your choices are a potion that lets you understand every animal you meet for the rest of your life, a potion that allows you to relive one memory exactly how it happened, or a potion that reveals the truth behind every lie spoken to you from this moment onward. Which do you choose and why? Oh man. Okay. I really love this question. It feels like it's come out of a movie or something. And yeah, it's got me a little bit stumped. Let me think. Okay, so working backwards. The potion that reveals the truth behind every lie spoken to you from this moment on. I feel like as an empath, I read people's energy and I kind of am a human lie detector already. So I feel like maybe someone gave me this potion as a baby or something because I already have it. It is a double-edged sword. It's not nice to always know when people are being disingenuine towards you, and to know when their energy changes towards you as well, because it's not always that people have been kind of against you from the start. Sometimes they just kind of turn, or not even against you, but sometimes, everyone grows and sometimes we grow apart. And it's sad when you can see that happening before maybe even they realize that. Um, so yeah, that's a hard question. Sorry, I've gone really deep there. It was meant to be a light and fun answer. So that's no, I don't need that. The second one is what was that? The potion that lets you relive one memory exactly as it happened. Again, I feel like I have quite a good photographic memory for like the things that I can remember. I When I say the things I can remember, I did have a hard childhood and a lot of trauma, and so, there are some things I cannot remember, which my brain has done on purpose. Again, I've gone really deep and dark again. Sorry, I'm not good at this. But, one thing is when there's something I remember sometimes it's not very nice because I do remember traumatic stuff really well as well, but I feel like my memories kind of this is how I described it to my therapist, is that my memories kind of play out like a playbook in my head. So it's like I'm watching a little mini film and it's like the scene being relived. And so it's like I see a whole video clip, like exactly how it was in my head happening again. Sometimes unwillingly, sometimes I can do it on purpose. So again, I feel like I was force-fed potions as a baby, clearly. And then the last one is a potion that lets you understand every animal you meet for the rest of your life. Now, come on. It's got to be that one. Living my Snow White dreams. Yeah. Again, makes me want to burst into song. Ah. Yeah, that's very me. I would love that. There's sometimes when with my pets, like Sage, my puppy, well, she's nearly 1 now. It's her birthday this month, actually. She just does things, and I just think, "I'd love to just know exactly what you're thinking right now because she's insane." And she looks at me like she's really trying to tell me something, and I'd love to know what she's trying to say. And similarly with my pet rabbit, like rabbits make no noise. And I really feel for them because at least with like dogs, they are quite animated and you can kind of tell what they're thinking. They can kind of communicate you in some ways. And rabbits can as well, but a lot less, I think. Um, and I do sometimes think, oh, I wish I knew if you were happy, if you're unhappy, what do you need? Like, so yeah. And when I come across like cats in the street, cats are always attracted to me and they always come up and follow me around and they talk to me and stuff. I'd love to know what they're saying. Like, there's sometimes when I've seen cats and I'm like, are you a stray? Are you not a stray? Do you need help? I can't tell. Um, and then they could tell me and then I could just know. Yeah, definitely that one. Dr. Dolittle is the potion that I want. So yeah, that's my choice. Let me know if you would have chosen differently. Were you given that potion as a baby? Do you talk to animals? If you do, that's really cool. That's the end of Bewitching Choices. Before we wrap things up, there's one more thing I'd like to share with you. A little segment called Found Along the Way. It's a space for me to share something that's been meaningful, helpful, inspiring, or thought-provoking on my own path. Sometimes it might be a book, sometimes a podcast, sometimes a TV show, an oracle deck, or a spiritual practice. Anything really that I've found along the way. They're simply things that I've discovered along the way that have resonated with me, and perhaps they might resonate with you too. So, for this first Found Along the Way, I wanted to share an oracle deck that's always been quite special to me, but particularly over the past few months. It's called the Sacred Creators Oracle, and it's by Chris Ann. I actually discovered this deck completely by accident. I was attending my first sound bath, and at the end, the facilitator invited everyone to pull an oracle card. I remember pulling a card and immediately feeling connected to the message. It was one of those moments where you pulled something and you were like, wow, this is exactly what I needed to hear. I mean, I say one of those moments. It happens every time with my oracle cards, and I'm surprised every time. I'm like, wow, it's magic. The decks stayed in my mind afterwards, and I basically ended up ordering my own ones by the end of the day from Amazon because I was like, I need to have that deck. What I love about it is it feels really different from the other decks I own. The artwork is colourful and modern. I usually go for more like folklore type decks, and they're usually quite kind of mysterious and mystic. But this one's much more modern, very colourful, and quite simplistic, but it still feels so meaningful and authentic. The messages are thoughtful without feeling overcomplicated, and I find myself reaching for it whenever I'm reflecting on something, working through a decision, or standing at a crossroads in my own life, as I have been recently. I'm generally drawn more to oracle cards than tarot, to be honest. And one of the things I love about this deck is the guidebook. Each card has an essential meaning, a self-care message, a deeper explanation, and a series of reflective questions. It feels less like being given an answer and more being invited into a conversation with yourself, which is how I believe you should use oracle cards anyway. It's all about the feeling when you're reading them and your own personal interpretation. It also includes a small number of special creator cards connected to the elements, which add another layer to the readings and always feel particularly meaningful when they appear. There's only 4 in a pack. And that's why I thought it would be the perfect thing to share for today's Found Along the Way, because this deck has been accompanying me through a crossroads of my own. A little while ago, when I was trying to decide whether creating this podcast was the right thing to do, I pulled a card from this deck called Follow Through. Now, at the time, I already had the vision, but if I'm being honest, I was also carrying a lot of uncertainty. Starting something new can be exciting, but it can also be scary, especially when you care deeply about it. The message of the card was all about unfinished ideas, unfinished projects, and having the courage to follow through rather than leaving it sitting on the shelf as a maybe one day dream. And that really resonated with me. Not because it gave me a definite answer, but because it reminded me that sometimes there's a point when you have to stop endlessly weighing up every possibility and actually take a step forward. Then today, before I sat down to record this episode, another card jumped out of the deck while I was shuffling. That card was called Ambush Fear with Your Ferocious Dream. And I couldn't help laughing when I read it. Because if you've ever started something new, you'll know that fear tends to show up sooner or later. Fear of getting it wrong, fear of failing, fear of putting yourself out there, fear of making the wrong choice, fear of what others might think. And yet, the message of the card wasn't that fear would disappear. It was that sometimes you move forward anyway. Then the card I actually pulled, I always continue to pull a card even if one jumps out at me and I read the two, was called Overthinking Can Spoil the Magic. At that point, I was just sat there laughing because suddenly I had 3 cards sitting in front of me. I'd kept the other one out on my altar from when I was making the decision to create which path next. Follow through, ambush fear with your ferocious dream, and overthinking can spoil the magic. 3 completely separate cards, and yet they all seem to be speaking about exactly the same thing. Following through on something that matters, not letting fear make the decision for you, and trusting yourself enough not to get stuck endlessly analysing every possible outcome, which I'm really good at. Now, I'm not sharing this because I think oracle cards hold all the answers. In fact, if today's episode has taught us anything, it's that crossroads rarely come with any certainty. But I thought it was a lovely reminder that sometimes the messages we need have a funny way of finding us. And these certainly found me at exactly the right time. So as I said, I got the Sacred Creators Oracle card deck from Amazon. I'm sure it's available other places if you don't want to buy from Amazon. But I will put the link in the episode description for you. Before we part ways for today, let's take a moment on the path. One of the things Crossroads reminds us is that change isn't always something that happens to us. Sometimes it's something we choose. Sometimes we reach a point where a path that once felt right no longer feels aligned. A belief changes. A dream evolves. A chapter comes to an end. And while that can feel uncomfortable, it doesn't mean we failed. It doesn't mean we've taken a wrong turn. It simply means we've grown. So if you find yourself at a crossroads right now, perhaps this is your reminder that you're allowed to change. You're allowed to outgrow things. You're allowed to choose a different direction than the one you imagined for yourself a year ago. And you're allowed to trust that the path ahead doesn't have to look exactly like the one behind you. Sometimes honouring your path means having the courage to let it evolve. Thank you for joining me on today's path. If you've enjoyed today's episode, leaving a rating or review helps more people discover the podcast and join us on the journey. You can continue the conversation through the Witch Path Next podcast community. You'll find me on Facebook, Instagram, Threads and TikTok, as well as in the Witch Path Next podcast community Facebook group, all under the name Witch Path Next ?podcast. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode, your answers to this month's bewitching choice, and anything you found along your own path recently. You can also find all of the links, along with the website and contact details in the episode description. I've been Ned, and until our paths cross again, take care of yourself and keep walking your own path.